Hey, welcome back to Everyday Economics. This is the podcast that helps you learn about the economic world happening around you every day. I'm your host, Chris Krug. I'm publisher of the Center Square Newswire service. Everyday Economics is brought to you by the Center Square. To support Everyday Economics, please make a tax-deductible charitable contribution by clicking the link in the show description. We are recording this episode on Monday, November 24th, and joining me as always is PhD economist Dr. Orphe Divounguy. Dr. O, how are you? Well, it's good, and it's good to be back with you. Like a lot of economists, you were during the government shutdown, kind of like looking for your keys in the dark a little bit, and of course, the government turned back on after 43 days. We got a jobs report that came out basically this past week. And it was a combination report. It had September in it and it had October in it. And the jobs number overall, up about 119,000 total jobs. As you wrote in the Everyday Economics column, which appears every Monday at the Center Square, that there were, there have been two revisions this year that I think are noteworthy. There was one that took place earlier. I believe it was at the beginning of Q3 where the jobs were taken down by 30,000. But earlier in the year, from Biden era estimates, the Trump administration said that there were really about 900,000 fewer jobs, and I think you make note of that in your column as well. Talk to me about this jobs report, and let's get into unemployment, because while jobs were added, unemployment actually rose to 4.4%, which would be, as again you noted in your column, the highest total or the highest percentage in about 4 years.
Yeah, I mean the labor market we knew was cooling already before going into the shutdown. Over long periods of time, what tends to happen is you see the two different surveys, right? The payroll survey and the household survey converge, and so what that tells me is ultimately, I think what you're likely to see is the employment numbers revised down. With the unemployment rate rising and everything we know about the economy going into this, plus what we're seeing from private sector data, I found that 119,000 job headline number somewhat suspicious, and I expect a downward revision in the months to come. And then you have, of course, I mentioned the private sector data, and the private sector data has been pointing to job declines, whether it's Revelio Labs that looks at the workforce, whether you look at ADP's weekly real-time data, or even Gusto that's now saying basically small business net hiring has turned negative. And then there's the job postings from Indeed that continue to go down. So all of that points to a labor market that is weak, points to potentially the employment level having fallen as opposed to increased or even accelerated, like this jobs report tends to suggest. So we'll see. We're not going to get an October jobs report because the data collection didn't take place. So we're going to get a November jobs report in December. But unfortunately, that will come after the Fed decision. Mm-hmm. And so if the Fed is kind of waiting to see something, to cut, then we may not get a rate cut. And I think that would be a mistake because the labor market is still cooling and potentially, right, employment could actually be now declining. So that's the risk. A Fed that's too late means what usually the unemployment rate just starts to shoot up, right? It's 0.1, 0.2% increase, then it's 0.3, and then all bets are off. And so I think it's very dangerous for the Fed to play this wait and see game, as opposed to getting ahead of a big cool down. And there's a bunch of industries that are cooling. I shared with you a write up by Neil Dutta from Renaissance that basically points out this. It's a Business Insider op-ed, I think, where he just points out different industries that are right. Residential housing, we know, commercial real estate, restaurants. What do you think people do when they start to, they're worried about their income prospects or they're getting laid off? Well, they start pulling back on things like eating out, right?
Yeah. I mean, you talk a lot about, what the economy actually is, and it's not the statistics and it's not dollars, it's people, right? And who has access to dollars and what they're doing with them, right? And
that's right.
And so I guess like observationally, I have not really seen any particular slowdown in terms of restaurant usage. I mean, I have to eat out, a lot on the road. I spend a lot of time on the road. I haven't seen that yet. But where in the economy do you specifically see, like behavioral changes that are occurring at this point?
So, I mean, you got to think about which industries are the most affected right now by the higher for longer interest rates.
Yeah.
Right. And it's residential housing.
Mm-hmm.
It's the commercial real estate. Although we got some pretty decent data coming from last month, coming from housing, because of the dip in mortgage rates, right, that we got.
Yes.
But home sales have bounced along the bottom for the better part of 2 or 3 years almost now. It's the government sector shedding jobs, right? So, if you look at state, local, but also federal employment, it's on the way down. And you look at the Washington, D.C. housing market, it's weakened. It's freight, mining, trade, because of the trade war. It's mining, it's higher education. And he just points to all these different sectors in his article that have just started to show the slowdown. Now, let me also add something about the bar and restaurant scene, because I was in Austin recently and I was talking to an Uber driver, and he was sharing with me that, like, he was doing on top of driving his Uber, he was also promoting these what do you call this? It's like food gatherings, like you have an event and street food and stuff, right? And they have these street food events, and basically, and he does it around the country. And what he said is basically it's dying. Like they were struggling, right? And then, but then at the same time, he's driving his Uber, and he noticed that the bar scene at night is still busy.
Okay,
right? And what is my thought on that? My thought is very simple. It's that, we're creatures of habit, and we like to smooth consumption over time. And so people might still be going to the bar because they're used to seeing their friends every Thursday or Friday.
Mm-hmm.
But instead of ordering 4 drinks, they're ordering 2.
Okay.
And that's just kind of, it's the same story for you look at the consumer sentiment data. It's very easy to dismiss the consumer sentiment data and say, well, hold on a second. This shows a dip in consumer sentiment, but the economy is doing great. The numbers look good, but the reality is people tell you how they feel first, and then it shows up.
Right.
With a lag in the numbers, because we're creatures of habit, and we don't want to suddenly stop seeing our friends on the usual Friday night out. Right. And so you don't see it right away, but it starts to creep. Right. And then people start to pull back, and then it starts to show up in the real in the numbers. And so that's my answer to that. We're starting to see the announcements of huge layoffs, especially in higher paying jobs in higher paying sectors. And if you believed up until this point that higher income households were supporting the economy, then the fact that you're now seeing higher paying jobs in higher paying sectors, basically you're seeing layoffs in those areas of the economy, ought to ring a bell, a warning bell. And, that suggests that potentially the support that we were seeing is starting to dwindle down a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your thoughts as always. Obviously, we're going to come back and we'll record some more shows next week. This is Thanksgiving week. It's kind of a short week, I think, for everybody. I'm grateful for everyone that listens to and watches, our segments on Everyday Economics. We'll come back and we'll talk more next week about what's going on with the Fed, and certainly we'll have some new data points that we can dig into. But let's call it good for here. And happy Thanksgiving, Dr. O. It's always good to be with me. I'm thankful for a great many things, and our friendship and the time that we get to spend together on this show is absolutely one of them. For Orphe Divounguy, this has been Chris Krug. Subscribe to Everyday Economics wherever great podcasts are hosted. And make sure you listen to Dr. O and me every week on the Center Square Radio Hour.